Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We're honored to have with us here the Indian Consul General, Mr. Satish Kumar Shivan. So welcome, sir. I have with me Mrs. Mairu Gupta, chairperson of Avid Learning and founder. My name is Asad Lalji. I'm the CEO of Avid Learning. Welcome to Climate Warriors and their pathways to sustainable solutions at the prestigious stage of COP28 UAE, which has brought the world together at a critical moment for global climate action. Avid Learning, the cultural philanthropy arm of the Essar Group, was established in 2009 by Mrs. Mairu Ruia, our founder chairperson, and has presented close to 1,600 multiverse and hybrid programs domestically and internationally with a vision to democratize the arts and create new audiences and deepen engagement in the burgeoning creative sector of India. Avid Learning has established itself as a pioneer and one of the leading arts and culture programming platforms in the country. Driven by the fundamental belief in the transformative power of the arts for social change and showcasing individuals who drive change, Avid Learning is proud to present this invigorating conversation as a continuation of our most acclaimed series, Sustainability Now, a thematic and purpose-driven series aimed at empowering our audiences to become agents of positive change, active catalysts, and custodians of a greener future. To date, we have presented over 60 changemakers across 40 programs in this series, dwelling on topics such as architecture and urbanism, conscious consumerism, and green technology. India has walked the talk on this inspiring journey on climate change. The 8th COP summit was held in New Delhi in 2002, and placing climate action among the foremost priorities during our recent G20 presidency. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, aptly states our strides in various sectors of renewable energy, energy efficiency, afforestation, energy conservation mission life stands as evidence of our people's unwavering commitment to Mother Earth. Global leaders have acknowledged and praised India's role in achieving a global consensus and taking a robust stance on cooperation and multilateralism. Last year, India was ranked among the top 5 performing countries on climate change globally, notably the only G20 member to feature within the top 10 of the Global Climate Performance Index. At Avid Learning, we strongly believe in collaboration and want to express our sincere gratitude to Rita Magnus, Reshma Tony, and the entire COP team for giving us this opportunity. And it brings me to our discussion at hand. Climate warriors and their pathways to sustainable solutions. Please join us in welcoming Kaustubh P, founder of Pyse. Ashay Bhave, social entrepreneur and founder Thaely. Rewant Ruia, director Essar Group. A little louder, guys, come on. I know it's lunchtime. And our moderator, Mairu Gupta, founder and CEO of Antkind. The speakers will discuss the role of education in climate change mitigation, sustainable entrepreneurship, and the future in green assets and future trends. Look forward to a fascinating conversation full of learning and insights. Thank you, and over to you, Mairu.
I'm really happy that the younger generation is buying into the idea of sustainability and looking after Mother Earth, because they are the torchbearers of tomorrow, and they better carry our agenda ahead so that we leave the world behind with a peace of mind. Thank you.
Welcome to COP28. India's relationship to climate change is deeply personal. Not only are we the seventh most vulnerable country to climate change, but also the third largest emitter in the world. We are a nation that's acutely aware of its devastating effects. And from Himalayan glaciers, which are melting, to erratic monsoons, we are seeing the effects of climate change in India already. Yet, we are a nation brimming with resilience and hope and climate action. I'd like to quickly summarize some of the things that India has been piloting before we move on to the discussion. First, we're leading the clean energy revolution. India is the world's third largest renewable energy producer as a country, with a target of 500 gigawatts by 2030. We are building resilience into the very fabric of our development. National Action Plan on Climate Change does guide us in adapting to the realities of climate change on ground. And lastly, we're championing the mindful and sustainable lifestyle, straight from our Prime Minister Modi, who's launched the Life Movement, a clarion call for citizen action on climate change. India has reduced its emissions and intensity by 25% since 2005, exceeding our initial target. We know that the road ahead is still long despite the achievements so far, and that youth needs to lead from the front when it comes to climate change. And therefore, India's burgeoning startup ecosystem is embracing climate change. And we've got a great curation of young entrepreneurs across different industries. So we're gonna start talking to them in the order of Ashay, and Rewant and Kaustubh. Maybe if you guys can just introduce yourselves, what you do, and what is your sustainable practice in your lives?
Hi, I'm Ashay Bhave. I'm the CEO and founder of Thaely. Thaely is a vegan footwear brand, and we make shoes from waste plastic bags and plastic bottles. I invented a leather replacement that's called Thaely Tex, but it's made entirely out of waste plastic bags. We're also very focused on circularity and a closed loop system, which is why customers can trade in their old used Thaely sneakers, and this allows us to responsibly recycle them. Yeah.
Oh. Hi everyone, my name is Rewant Ruia. I'm part of the Essar Group. The Essar Group was started by my father Ravi and my uncle Shashi Ruia 50 years ago. And we basically operate across 4 different industry verticals: energy, metals and mining, infrastructure, and services. And really what we are doing is we are looking at how to take all our learnings of the last 50 years across heavy industry and then really try to adapt them and transform assets to be suitable and ready for the next 50 years. And it's really a pleasure to be here at COP with all of you. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaustubh. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pyse. We're a climate finance platform that allows individuals like you and me to go in and invest in renewable energy projects, EVs, water treatment projects, anything that's sustainable, right? The fundamental thing that we wanted to prove was anything that's good for the planet is great for the wallet as well. Right? The idea to make sustainability not just a cost center for people, but also a profit center, right? The ability for people to look at making money out of sustainability was our genuine goal. So I think the images in the background will show you all of these projects were, be it EV fleets, renewable energy projects, were all set up through individuals putting in anywhere between $60 to $100 per project. And I think we've been trying to make individual climate action more impactful. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
Excellent. Welcome to the panel. And we're going to try and keep it conversational. So we'll start with Ashay. Ashay, you call Thaely a completely vegan footwear brand. Is it, while the idea is great on paper, is it actually scalable as a business, and how circular is it in its design?
So, we designed the process to be, to be as scalable as possible, to be as efficient as possible. When I say process, I mean the process of converting waste plastic bags into the leather replacement fabric, Thaely Tex. When we started in 2021, we had only produced about 2,000 pairs of sneakers. This year, we're probably going to produce about 15,000. So it's only been 2 years, and we've already, scaled up quite a bit. And we've reached a point with the process where, initially we struggled with making enough fabric for just our shoes, but now, we're working with other companies in entirely different industries. Like, we're currently working with a car brand to use our fabric for interiors. as a leather replacement. So we've scaled up quite a bit where, we're able to provide for other companies, and the circularity part of it, we're starting this pilot in India very soon, where we have a trade-in model, and customers are able to return their used Thaely sneakers in exchange for discounts, and it allows us to responsibly recycle them or refurbish them. We've only been around for 2 years, so it's not like we get a lot of returns, but any defects that we have, and it's generally 1% for the entire batch, we refurbish them or we recycle them.
I think it's truly incredible that once the material is created and the shoes are made, it's not over there. It's not over there.
Right.
It's circular in the sense that you can get the materials back and again repurpose them. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Rewant, you run one of the largest business houses in India. What does sustainability mean to the Essar Group? Why is it important?
So, thanks, Mairu. So, I think sustainability is now a part of life. Anyone who's not embracing it is going to be missing out in the future, because sustainability is what has to drive organizations into the future. At Essar Group, we built several businesses of large scale, and really what we're now looking at doing is using that knowledge that we have established and generated over the last many decades to really try to understand how to adapt it and do it in ways that have not necessarily been done, or transform existing businesses and build new businesses that can really drive sustainability going forward. Sustainability is a key, and really what is happening now is governments are also working to empower and reward companies to enable sustainability. And that is something that is extremely important, and really companies need to do their part. And actually at the Essar Group, we're trying to be leaders in this, in the businesses that we understand and are a part of. And that is what is going to help us in transforming our businesses and really being commercially sensible and establishing, a better business for the future. Thanks.
You're in a great position unique position of power to actually make that impact. So it's great that you guys are thinking in that direction. We'll delve into that a little bit more in the following conversation. But just move on to Kaustubh. And Kaustubh, what role can climate finance play in developing countries and bringing capital there? Because as a lot of conversation and co-op around climate finance. But when you saw commitments that were made, they fell short. So how do companies such as yourself, maybe it's a tall order to ask, but are you guys working in that direction of actually solving for that?
Yeah, I think that's an important question in general, right? When you talk about climate, you have a lot of solutions that are available today. But most of the times people come back and say, hey, listen, you know what, the solution's ready, but we don't really have the capital to put it out, right? Many people who have the solution have been trying out, haven't been able to scale the way they would because of the lack of capital. I think the best example is our experience in India for the last 2.5 years, right? There are in total of about 850 startups in India registered under Startup India as a climate tech startup, right? And none of them have raised any form of funding. Or even if they have solutions that are at R&D stages and product developed, but they don't really know how to deploy them, right? And the blocker is finance. Now, addressing the question that you brought up, right? Saying, listen, there are a lot of targets that are put on how much money needs to be deployed, but it's not really being met. I'd want to go a step even before that to say that if we did have the money, we don't really know how to deploy it and where to deploy it to, right? So hypothetically, if I was given $100 billion, which was what the target was last year from COP, right? That all the countries should come together to do that. We don't really know which solutions it should go to. We honestly don't really know, which ones we need to prioritize. What's the plan of deployment like? Absolutely no clue about it, right? I think that needs to be addressed first. But coming to the fact of the global south, where I think a lot of innovation is happening for climate, because we are the most affected, right? Like you rightly mentioned about India being hugely adversely affected by this. We have the solutions. I think what we need to figure out are innovative models of raising capital for projects, which is what we're doing at Pyse as well, right? Because we realized for solar projects, right, which are typically between $50,000 to, let's say, $150,000, you don't really find institutions moving the needle that quickly, right? They really want the gigawatt scale plants. They want the large scale plants to set up. But suddenly you're missing out on almost about 30, 40% of the addressable market, right? Or even, let's talk about fleets, right? You have a lot of individual family offices that own petrol bikes that are given for deliveries to, the Zomatos and the Swiggis of the world. But for them to convert to EVs, the lack of capital is actually a problem, right? So at Pyse, what we realized is saying, listen, we know capital is a requirement. We know that there are other sources of capital that's a little slow right now to understand climate. So why don't we unlock a brand new type of capital, which was retail investors, right? So we activated the idea of individual climate action, getting folks like you and me to come in and say, hey, listen, you know what, I would have put $1 or $2 to go plant a tree somewhere, right? But now I'm putting the same money towards an electric vehicle that's being leased to a very good corporate and also getting returns on it, and suddenly that's scalable. So our problem statement here was to identify a new source of capital. And I think a lot of innovation, when people talk about in terms of climate tech, people forget that there's innovation required in climate finance as well, right? Both in types of the sources of capital, the quantum, where it's coming from, who's investing. So I think we're in a unique position with the Global South to come up with solutions like this and have them.
Most of your deployment is happening in India and UAE. So I guess that's where the capital is going, correct?
Yeah. I think in terms of what we've seen as attraction, India has obviously been the most exciting because anybody and everyone's going to tell you that the definition of total addressable market comes from the population of India, right? But I think UAE is in an exciting place as well in general, because we're talking about 90,000 petrol bikes today that you'll see on road being used by the Talabats and the Noons of this country, right? The ability to switch them to electric vehicles, it's a very interesting problem to solve, right? Because it's almost untapped and where we are at. So as an entrepreneur, I'm extremely excited about the opportunity that exists to make that difference, but also hopeful of the fact that I think looking at individual climate action as importantly as what folks like you are doing at much larger corporations, there's a way we could meet halfway through in making this work.
Awesome. I'm going to ask a few tough questions here. It's been fun so far, but is it ethical to profit from the use of plastic bags, which is a major contributor to environmental pollution, and even if the end product is a sustainable sneaker?
So, I mean, look at it this way. If it, when I first started Thaely, it was impossible to find waste plastic bags, which is a little strange, right? Because we use 1 trillion of them every year. You're still able to find plastic bottles, like you can buy a bale of waste plastic bottles, but you can't buy a bale of waste plastic bags because there's no monetary value attached to them. So there's no incentive for waste collectors or even large recycling companies to actually collect waste plastic bags. And in a country like India, where recycling and waste collection is quite good, and a lot of companies do it. So that's sort of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the collection of plastic bags even more profitable. And only then would we be able to have a big enough impact. Apart from us, there might be other companies as well who'll be interested and would recycle plastic bags and make innovative products out of them.
That's fair. I think so. What you're saying is there's 1 trillion bags in the world, plastic bags in the world used every year.
Yeah.
I think UAE is probably 3x the global average, which is 100 per person. UAE is, I think, 300 per person. So what you're really saying is that if we were not going to use those plastic bags, they would have anyway ended up in a landfill and actually cause pollutants, be pollutants, right? So by making it profitable to sell them, you're essentially removing and making it circular in a way. right?
Right, exactly.
Awesome, that's great. Well, Rewant, for you, I have a special long one which I'll read. There's a serious inconsistency, I think, in how businesses, with the business world sees sustainability. Whenever a company that prioritizes sustainability gets into trouble, people say that the leaders took their eye off the ball and focused on sustainability, not on the business. But when companies stumble while pursuing a normal course of business, their troubles are really not blamed on that single-minded focus. So how does a business leader like yourself balance, sustainability and the business aspect of it?
Thanks, Mairu. So I think, so climate change is real. This is a serious problem that the world is going through. And really, sustainability is, as I mentioned earlier, is really a part of life. And any business that is not leading with sustainability as a part of their agenda is going to have a problem in the future. And I think governments are really incentivizing companies to allow them to make this transformation. There are many governments, the Middle East is one of those countries that are leading. The UK is doing that, and India as well is now very, very progressive in adapting and setting up policies and frameworks to enable and incentivize companies to do that, and really disincentivize people who are not doing that. So now, really, if you look at an example of this, I was at a panel yesterday with ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and one of the people there was mentioning that when you produce 1 barrel of oil, the global average emits, the global oil companies emit roughly 40 kilos of carbon to produce 1 barrel of oil. ADNOC has been driving that change, and they are down to now only 7 kilos of carbon per ton of oil. So what they're doing is they're actually, the way in which they produce that oil, they're making that much more efficient. So for example, so now we have a refinery up in the UK, near Liverpool, where we produce almost 16% of all the fuels for the UK market. So what we are doing over there is actually currently, as we transform each barrel of oil into a barrel of crude, we're currently into a barrel of petroleum products. We're actually emitting roughly 2 million tons of carbon per year. Now, what's basically happening as a mechanism is the government is now charging us taxes on that. And we are effectively, they're charging today roughly we pay about 50, 60 pounds per ton of carbon that we emit. So as a result of that, our cost annually is coming now to somewhere between 100 and 150 million pounds a year in taxes that we have to pay. So now we are highly incentivized to actually decarbonize that refinery. And we have a plan that in the next 3 to 4 years, we will decarbonize that refinery by 95% and actually be one of the leaders in producing something what we are wanting to call green petrol and green diesel. So as a result, when customers now decide to buy our fuel, we benefit in 2 ways. The first one is that we actually don't have to pay this carbon tax, and so that's a big benefit to the company. But also, we do believe that customers will start to think about paying a premium to get fuels, especially airlines and companies that can afford it. The individual customer, maybe there are a few that will embrace that, but really it is the larger institutions, governments, etc., that would be saying, it makes sense for us to pay a little bit more to protect the environment. And so really it is this sort of policy that is really driving this change, that is enabling companies to move forward, and really with in partnership with governments. So sustainability is a part of life, and I think the rhetoric has changed, and for people who are not following that and who are not leading in that, I think there's a big opportunity for people who are basically leading this. Thanks.
So is it fair to summarize that what you're saying is that due to favorable regulation, business and shareholder interests are actually now aligned with, being sustainable as a company as well, and therefore, it's a no-brainer for you to be essentially be focused on it?
Absolutely. So, that's absolutely right. In fact, as people look at businesses, because they're more sustainable, they become more valuable in terms of multiples. So if you have a traditional business that may be operating in, and earning and being valued at a 3 to 4 time multiple, when you start moving into a sustainable business, then these businesses are worth, maybe at least a couple of turns more on valuation. So you actually get two benefits. One is your EBITDA should actually grow. Of course, there is investment. That's when government support also does potentially come in. So you actually get more EBITDA, and then you also get a value or a multiple expansion. So overall, it actually is economically and commercially sensible for businesses to lead in that.
Okay, thanks. Kaustubh, how do you respond to criticism that that climate finance companies are primarily driven by profit motives, and that their focus on financial returns may conflict with the long-term goals of climate action?
I think good question, tough one, but yeah. I think the fundamental problem with the narrative of sustainability, the way we know it, is we try to associate sustainability with philanthropic, right? Activities in general, right? Or feel good. Nobody really looked at sustainability as saying, hey, listen, you know what, I can really make money out of this. And that's all right, right? I think it took us to a certain extent. Philanthropy is definitely one of the most important proponents of capital. Like I mentioned, there are different sources of capital, and philanthropy is one of the pillars, but it can only take us to so far, right? To make something scalable, to make something, make the adoption of something scalable, it really needs to have an incentive beyond just the feel-good factor of it, right? And it's perfectly all right to look at sustainability as profitable, because like I started my original pitch of what we do at Pyse, the point here is something that's good for the planet is great for your wallet as well. And that's how the economics work, right? There are, I think, n number of examples of how, shifting to something sustainable has actually made people more money, not just in the long run, but in the short run as well, right? I think examples like you mentioned on how there are tax, incentives because you end up going sustainable. That's one, right? The cost of operating your business reduces significantly. That's the other one. It's natural that sustainability will eventually lead to profitability. Now, the question that you posed is definitely a problematic one for the ESG fund side of the world that manage, portfolios of stocks, basketing it as ESG funds, but then you still have non-compliant companies as a part of that bucket. What needs to be made clear is even if you're looking at profitability, there needs to be a very clear indication and a very clear framework of showing the impact as well. Right? I think we've pretty much bastardized the word of, impact in general. And I'm sure in COP28 we've used it a lot of times without really having a lot of context. But I think the ability to cut through a lot of the noise around the greenwashing and go straight to saying, hey, listen, you know what? These are the number of kilograms of carbon that's actually been offset. These are the number of new jobs that have been created. And this is the actual impact, but also, you know what, you're making 20-30% of returns on your investment as well.
So,
right?
So I get that, that sustainability is also good for business. But when it comes to prioritizing profit and at the cost of whatever else, which is how, business works essentially, we've seen a lot of greenwashing that happens because of that, and therefore, how does climate finance or Pyse, in fact, for example, be able to solve for that?
So I think that's the thing, right? That's the problem that we're trying to solve, because profitability and sustainability go hand in hand, right? When we're talking about Pyse itself, we allow financing of renewable energy projects, right? So we basically finance, let's say, rooftop solar plants that generate power and sell power to a client for a captive audience, right? The cost of power is almost 50% cheaper than the grid, right? Take the example of electric vehicles. When I convert a petrol bike into an EV, my cost of operations falls down by almost 40-50%, right? Just as an example, I think we just deployed about 100 bikes for noon right here in Dubai, right? Now, the daily riders, the blue-collar workers today, spend close to about 400 to 450 dirhams each month on just petroleum, right? But the moment they're switching to EV, the cost on their pocket comes down to 250 dirhams for the same amount of rides that they're doing, by the way, right? So if you look at it, just going sustainable will lead to profitability somehow, right? And that's the nature of that practice. the more people start to see, I think the problem that we need to solve is this, right? We need to make it more accessible and affordable for people. Now, usually when we look at, electric vehicles or solar, the first thought that comes to our mind is, hey, listen, do I need to really spend $50,000 on this, right? Or do I need to spend $3,000 to buy an electric vehicle? But what if we shifted that narrative to say, hey, listen, you know what? I'll give you the electric vehicle, but you pay me a fixed lease in the back of it, right? Now, I'm not asking you to give me any money up front, but because it's operationally cheaper to run an EV, because it's operationally cheaper to generate power through renewable energy, the lease that you pay me for using the vehicle will almost be 30-40% cheaper than a traditional alternative, right? So again, the example that I would bring is an electric vehicle versus a petrol vehicle. People spend close to 1,200, 1,300 dirhams a month to be able to use a petrol vehicle here in Dubai. But the moment they switch to an electric vehicle, the lease comes down to 900 dirhams. And why is that? Because it's operationally cheaper. So it's important to understand that though there is that high upfront cost for sustainability, the mid to long-term goals of profitability go hand in hand because it's operationally cheaper.
Okay, fair. So I think it's consistent with what Rewant was also saying about it being good business. Okay, got it. We're going to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing and what impact it's going to create, and what are your goals for impact and what that means to you also. So starting with you, what does impact mean for you, and what's your long-term goal for Thaely?
So, so far we've recycled about 240,000 plastic bags and about a similar amount in plastic bottles as well. I always say the number of plastic bags because it's easier for people to understand. You can't really visualize a ton of plastic bags. So yeah, that's what we've done so far, and we're rapidly scaling up. Like I said, 2 years ago we were at 2,000, 1,500 pairs of shoes. Now this year we'll do about 15,000. And the year later in 2025, I mean not 2024 but 2025 is going to be even more exponential because we have a bunch of distributors coming in, and these are companies that place very large orders, and we're going to have one for every region. We've already got 2. We've got one for Australia, we've got one for Europe, and hopefully also one for India by next year. And the more we produce, the bigger our impact is, which is why we also want to offer the fabric to other companies. For us, if you look at a shoe, it's relatively small, so not much goes into it really. But then if you use the same fabric for things like cars or furniture, the surface area is just so much larger, just that much more fabric is used, and ultimately that much more plastic waste is recycled.
It's a scenario that will probably not happen, but if all the plastic in the world gets eliminated, your business is in trouble. Good problem to have.
I mean, if I'd be very surprised if we get to that. We've just not reached a point where there's viable enough solutions that are just as cost efficient, just as durable. So I think we're still far away, and apart from that, I think it's not very good to our fault that we're not recycling plastic and we're not using it to its full potential. So I think we're at fault, and ultimately I don't see plastics going anywhere. It's just that we need to move to using more and more recycled plastic as opposed to using virgin materials.
Thanks, thank you. Rewant, what are some of the key priorities for the Essar Group when it comes to sustainability? And since we are in the UAE, are there any specific impact initiatives that you're working on here?
Absolutely. So I think really at the Essar Group, we are trying to truly become leaders in the industries that we know well, that we function in. Currently, we have identified refining and steel making. And just speaking about the region itself, we are building a new green steel plant in Saudi Arabia. This will be one of the first and largest. It's about a $4.5 billion investment. And really what we're doing is we're working very closely with the government of Saudi Arabia to make this investment to be roughly about a $4.5 billion capex. And really what this will enable us to do is to really be one of the leaders in a new way of making steel using hydrogen that we will be sourcing from Aramco, and really trying to effect this change so that we can start to build and adapt businesses and industries in a way in which they can become much more sustainable and really grow. You know, as you were saying, it's a long journey, but I think we need to start now, and you know, the world is supporting us. So it's a really great opportunity to do that and to lead in this. Thanks.
That's amazing. Leading from the front from an Indian business perspective. So that's some real impact initiatives. Kaustubh, I think we have 2 minutes or 1 minute. I think we are on time. So maybe the last question is that how do you define success, and like, are there any contribution to D33 goals, or what is your impact goal essentially?
I think in terms of where we are today, we've raised close to about $10 million through retail investors all across India. I think we're trying to scale that impact to Dubai as well and make this more of an international product, right? For a problem statement as diverse as carbon and climate change, you can't really be geography agnostic. Like, you need to be geography agnostic, right? And say, listen, anybody in the world that wants to contribute to climate and make profit out of it should be able to, right? And that's what we're trying to build for. We have close to about 1,000 vehicles right now in India, EVs. We have close to 10 megawatts of plants that's been set up, all through individuals like you and me, right? So we've proven that individual climate action is scalable, and it does really matter. Now, in terms of the larger goals of where we are, I think we define success in 2 terms, right? One is with just the metrics that we want to reach. In terms of the offset, the D33 goal is very straightforward, right? We need to look at least 30 billion kilograms of carbon to be really offset from the planet. And I think looking at just Dubai as a place and a market, we're looking at, like I mentioned, 90,000 petrol bikes on road. Now, for the news channels, it's obviously a grim situation to say, hey, listen, nothing's really happening at climate change, nothing being done. But for as someone in running this business, I think it's an exciting, addressable market to reach out to. The problem statement's huge, excited to solve that out. The second thing I think we prove success with is the moment, our tagline, right? We really need more people to go back to their parents and say, hey, listen, we can really grow money on trees. And that's the end goal. I think we do that, we've achieved what we're doing.
That is a good tagline. A wise man told me when I was taking a course in climate, studying climate change before I started Antkind Collective. I was very purist in coming to climate and saying, I want to do profit for good and work for good, and like, I don't want my corporate job anymore. And he said, don't come in for the purism, come in for the billions. So I think a lot of the conversation that we've had here is essentially saying that you can be sustainable and it can be great for business at the same time without compromising on your goals on climate action. So, well, thank you so much for your time. It was really a pleasure having you all. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mairu, thank you guys for this insightful and inspiring panel. A little plug for all our panelists. Ashay has all the volunteers and the COP team are actually wearing his sneakers, so go check them out. And he's got a little pop-up in the circular economy. Where is that location? Next door. So just find it. From an Avid and SR plug, guys, you must come in the evening at 5:30. We have another program. It's a dance and storytelling performance on the Kohli community of Bombay. It's promising to be a wonderfully exciting show. So we hope you can be there. Thank you, Mairu, for so skillfully moderating the session, and thank you to your audience for being here. I know it's difficult to find this place, but thank you for showing up. Thank you very much.